Today I'm with Tim Hull. He's a Director of Operations with VMA or Violand Management Associates. Tim, how are you?
I'm doing good, Jeff. How about you?
Not too bad. It's good to catch up. I know the last time I saw you was probably some trade show way in the past, maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
But one day we'll be back to it for sure.
Yeah, we definitely miss those days.
We do. So Tim, let's get to know you a little bit. Tell us about yourself and how you got to be with VMA and your progress there.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So my introduction, I guess, into the world of consulting was kind of a different one. I came from the contracting side, so growing up, pounding nails, building houses. Actually, spent a little bit of time in the supply side of the industry, selling building materials. Shortly after college, found myself in the restoration industry. Was fortunate enough to be a part of the management team of a couple different large restorers. And I was at a leadership conference in Washington, D.C. We were actually talking about revamping the CR program with the RIA, and it was in the later years of Marty King's tenure there in that program. So we were talking about how to restructure it, and I sat next to Chuck at that event. So it was the first time I'd ever met him. And of course, at that time, I was running all over the country doing cat work and chasing hurricanes and fun stuff. So I had a young family at the time, and decided that the travel gig was probably more than what I should be doing, at least with young kids at home. So I called Chuck out of the blue one day, and I said, "Hey, you looking for a consultant?" And I was very fortunate that he was able to give me that opportunity at a fairly young age. So that was my Reader's Digest version of my introduction into the consulting world.
Very cool. It's nice to have someone doing what you do who knows what it's like to be in the field and deal with all those challenges. But I got
Absolutely.
to ask you this question about what's on your wall back there.
So I'm a fairly passionate whitetail deer hunter, archery hunter as well. So you can probably see the corner of one of my bucks that are hanging on the wall in my office.
Yeah, I know in an email we shared, you told me about Montana. You went to school there before you got into your career.
I
So
did, yeah.
Montana, what was that like?
Oh, it was fantastic, fantastic. I transferred to Montana State in the sophomore year of college. And the moment I visited Bozeman, Montana, just kind of fell in love with the place, the people, the atmosphere. If you like to do anything outside, whether it's hunting, fishing, hiking, biking, it's pretty much the mecca of all that activity.
Hmm.
So I transferred to MSU. I tried to major in elk hunting. They wouldn't let me. So I had to settle on business management, but fantastic experience. Great place.
Well, I think they added elk hunting to their curriculum since you left. I'm sorry to see you missed it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that would have been great.
did they make you wear cowboy hats or spurs or anything like that, or is it normal
Actually,
business?
we wore those voluntarily, Jeff. So for my MSU fans that are out there, you guys, you may remember or frequent a bar called Stacy's out in the Gallatin Gateway. So we used to cowboy up every Friday night, either head out to Stacy's or the Rock and R bar in town. So it's good stuff. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
And here you are. So tell us about VMA. How is it different from other consulting companies?
Yeah, well, I guess if you're looking for the textbook answer, Jeff, it would be that we have a proprietary way of working with our clients. We call it our sustained profitable growth model. And so we believe that every business is made up of three dynamics: the executive business development dynamic, the business development dynamic, and the people side of thing, and the personnel dynamic. And it's kind of like if you imagine a Venn diagram where those three things intersect is your area of sustained profitable growth in a business. And growing those three dynamics in a business equally relieves the pressure and maximizes your ability to sustain your growth moving forward. That's the textbook answer. From a personal side of things or the softer side of things, I think what distinguishes us from other consulting companies is we actually care. And I don't mean that to come across like other consulting companies don't care, but we are very active in working with our clients. We don't just write fancy reports and pat them on the back and wish them the best of luck. We have a regimented meeting schedule that we work through with them. And when you work that closely with an organization, you become very vested in their success, and both from a financial standpoint, but also from an emotional standpoint. We become very very committed to their success as an organization. So I feel that's kind of what sets us apart from other companies.
Yeah, that's cool. So when you're consulting with a client, do you ever get pushback on some of the advice you might share? Like, here's what we need to do. And they're like, what? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, we do get that. And you would think that if somebody's paying for you to give them advice, they'd take it all the time, right? But
Yeah.
no, we did get a fair amount of pushback. And actually, that can be a healthy thing, Jeff, because if clients just blindly take our advice without processing it, or at least criticizing it to a certain degree, then they're really not understanding what we're trying to implement. So sometimes that can be a good thing.
Yeah. So obviously they're looking for help when they consult with you and VMA. Are there any business mistakes you've seen out there that make you really scratch your head? Like, how can this be?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, from a high level, just an overall lack of planning is really surprising to me. Now I'm a fairly regimented, disciplined guy. So laying out a plan, whether it's before you start a project or any type of endeavor, is pretty important, at least from where I come from on the operation side of the business. But I'm surprised at how many people are successful in spite of having a plan, or not having a plan rather, because it's such a large part of what's important in business. So from a high level perspective, I think that's the kind of thing that makes me scratch my head. At a low level, or kind of in the weeds, as we call it, situation, I'm always amazed at the lack of contract negotiation that occurs before people start working on jobs. I get calls every week. I do some estimating training. I get calls every week from people that say, hey, help me out with this adjuster. And they'll send me the estimate, and I find out that the loss happened 3 weeks or 3 months ago, or whatever it is, and they're still waiting to be paid. And they're really trying to negotiate things that should have been discussed openly or communicated appropriately before they even started the work, because that's when you have the leverage as a contractor. But once the work's done and you're waiting for a check from an insurance carrier, you're pretty much stuck.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll wrap up today's session, our program today, with this question. Let's talk about successful companies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you work with them, you see it. What's a common theme among them?
Yeah.
And I know you've written articles about this topic as well.
Yeah. And I appreciate you asking, Jeff. This is one of my favorite topics. A few years ago, I was asked to, do a little research on the companies that we've worked with over the years and what has made them successful, and see if there was any common theme that ran through all of them. So taking a page out of Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, we took a look at the book of companies that we've worked with over the past 32 years, what things have worked, what things haven't worked. And the one thing that really stood out amongst everything was the common fundamentals and disciplines that were employed by those companies who were far superior than other companies. And we're not talking just like good companies, but companies that really just blew the bottom lines out of the door. These guys have, substantial net worths. They've got extreme value in their business. And if you look at the fundamentals that Collins outlined in that book, disciplined people, disciplined thoughts, disciplined actions, what I did was I took those fundamental principles and broke them down into 10 different attributes that successful restoration companies exhibit. And we actually had a presentation that I put together called The Disciplined Restorer. I gave that at a couple different conferences, as well as wrote that article in R&R. So, man, the fundamentals and disciplines, that is really what sets other companies apart from, being mediocre or being failures.
Yeah. Good stuff, Tim.